The world is not broken because we hate too much, but because we care too little. Let that truth stay with you as we look honestly at the world around us. We talk endlessly about hatred, about anger, about violence. Yet hatred is loud and obvious, while indifference is quiet and far more dangerous. Because indifference passes unnoticed and slowly erodes our humanity. We live in a world where suffering is everywhere, on our screens, in our news feeds, in our streets, and yet most of us feel almost nothing. We scroll past pain, swipe away tragedy, and consume stories of broken lives while remaining safely untouched. Not because we are cruel, but because we are tired, emotionally exhausted, overstimulated, overwhelmed. So we protect ourselves, numb our hearts, and little by little stop caring. The world is not broken because we hate too much. It is broken because we care too little. And 2,000 years ago, Jesus entered a world very much like ours. A world divided by power, by status, by religious certainty. A world where suffering was often ignored or explained away. Jesus did not arrive with force or domination. He did not come to win arguments or control systems. He arrived with empathy, radical empathy, a willingness to come close rather than remain safe at a distance. Jesus did not love humanity from afar. He walked dusty roads, felt hunger, experienced rejection, and chose proximity over comfort, a choice that changed everything. When Jesus saw the blind man crying out by the road, he did not silence him or hurry past. He stopped, and while others rushed forward, Jesus noticed, reminding us that sometimes noticing is the most radical act of love. When Jesus encountered the leper, a man untouched for years, feared and avoided by society, he did not heal him from a distance. He touched him, restoring dignity in a world that had stripped it away. When Jesus encountered the leper, a man untouched for years, feared and avoided by society, he did not heal him from a distance. He touched him, restoring dignity in a world that had stripped it away. When Jesus stood before the woman accused and condemned, surrounded by stones and certainty, he did not deny her sin, but he refused to define her by it. He saw a human being before he saw a failure, and mercy spoke louder than judgment. This empathy of Christ was not passive. It was disruptive. It challenged systems, unsettled the comfortable, and threatened power built on exclusion, because real empathy always costs something. The world teaches us to detach, to remain neutral, to protect ourselves emotionally. But Jesus teaches us to enter suffering, not to fix everything, not to explain pain away, but to remain present. Even when Jesus stood at the tomb of Lazarus knowing resurrection was coming, he still wept. Because empathy does not rush past grief, it honors pain by sharing it. Most of us did not choose indifference intentionally. We arrived there slowly, through disappointment, burnout, unanswered prayers. Caring became painful, so we stopped. Not because we are evil, but because we are human. Empathy is costly. It demands time, emotional energy, and vulnerability. Yet it is the path Christ consistently chose. Even on the cross, betrayed and broken, Jesus chose empathy, praying for forgiveness for those who harmed him, not as weakness, but as strength beyond human understanding. So what does this mean for us today? It means the world does not need more outrage or louder opinions. It needs presence. It needs people willing to listen, to stay, to care again, to resist the temptation of indifference. Christ does not ask us to save the world or carry its weight alone. He asks us to love the person in front of us, because love practiced faithfully, transforms quietly, but powerfully. The world is not broken because we hate too much, but because we care too little. And that means healing is still possible. Because caring is something we can choose again, today, now. May we have the courage to feel again, to care again, to love like Christ. And may the world begin to heal, one heart at a time. Maybe the question is not whether the world is broken. Maybe the question is whether we are willing to feel again, to care again, to risk again, to open our hearts even when it hurts. Because the moment we stop caring, the moment we stop feeling, is the moment we stop becoming who we were created to be. And Christ still calls us, not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, but to stay present, to love deeply, and to care one more time. But Jesus never chose distance. He chose presence. Again and again. He stepped into uncomfortable spaces, into messy lives, into stories that had no easy endings. He listened when others ignored. He stayed when others walked away. He loved when it would have been easier to move on. And that kind of love was never efficient, never convenient, never safe. But it was real, deeply real, and it changed people from the inside out. We tell ourselves we are just being realistic, just protecting our peace, just setting boundaries. But sometimes what we call wisdom is actually fear in disguise. Fear of feeling too much. Fear of hoping again. Fear of being disappointed one more time. So we build distance, emotional distance, spiritual distance, and we call it maturity, while our hearts quietly grow colder. And if we are honest with ourselves, we know this is true. We know how easy it is to care at first, and how quickly that care fades. We start with good intentions, with open hearts. But life happens. Disappointment follows. Prayers feel unanswered. People let us down. And slowly, quietly, without noticing, we begin to pull back. Not because we stopped believing, but because believing started to hurt. Caring became costly, and indifference felt safer. There is a quiet tragedy happening all around us. Not the loud kind we see on the news, but the silent one inside the human heart. People are still breathing, still working, still smiling, but inside something has gone numb. We have learned how to function without feeling, how to survive without hope, how to keep moving while our hearts remain untouched. And the world calls this strength, but Jesus calls it loss. Because when we stop feeling, we stop seeing. We stop seeing the pain behind someone's anger, the fear behind their silence, the loneliness behind their smile. We label people quickly, judge their behavior, explain their suffering, but we no longer sit with them. We no longer stay long enough to understand. And empathy cannot exist at a distance. It requires closeness, attention, time. Jesus never loved people in categories. He loved individuals, a name, a face, a story. He did not rush through encounters. He allowed interruptions. He allowed questions. He allowed moments to stretch longer than planned. And in those unhurried moments, lives were changed. Not because Jesus said the perfect words, but because he stayed.